And over the years, the FCC has stepped back from enforcing that public interest obligation. I think the FCC should do what Congress wants us to do and enforce those laws. We're going to see where this investigation goes.
So are you threatening to pull their license? Wouldn't that be a pretty drastic step?
Well, it's not a threat. That's a penalty that is in the Communications Act, that if you don't...
But when was the last time the FCC pulled a broadcast license?
Yeah, it's been a long time, and I think that's part of the issue. If you step back, trust in the national mainstream media is at an absolute low right now. That's not just my view. Jeff Bezos himself did an op-ed where he said that. But what's really interesting is that actually local stations, local TV stations, have a lot of trust. And so the agenda that I'm trying to run at the FCC is to empower those actual local television stations to serve the public interest. Because what we've seen is you've got national news media, ABC, NBC, CBS, and they're exercising more and more control over those local TV stations. And I don't think that's a good thing for the country. So we're trying to reverse that.
At the same
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
Well, Bill, the work that we have done has resulted in a number of movements in that region by Israel that were very much prompted by or a result of many things, including our advocacy for what needs to happen in the region.
But it seems that Prime Minister Netanyahu is not listening.
We are not going to stop pursuing what is necessary for the United States to be clear about where we stand on the need for this war to end.
That's right. Sorry, Bill Owens had left a couple weeks ago, and now Wendy McMahon. But I wonder how much of CBS News is going to get burned to the ground on the way to this merger. And that's what I'm curious to hear your take on, because, I mean, I wonder what'll be left, right? At some point, people are going to have to somebody's going to have to say, yes, we'll follow along and do this. And I don't know who it's going to be. So far, the people at CBS News are being pretty impressive.
Boy. So we got to continue our coverage of President Trump destroying the mainstream liberal media. Now, I would say that President Trump single-handedly has destroyed the mainstream liberal media, but that's actually not the case, because the media, they have destroyed themselves due to the fact they've ruined their credibility over the fact that they are extremely Trump deranged. And because of that, they lie to the American people about damn near everything. Okay, they never tell the truth, and they ruin their own credibility, okay, behind their lies in order to smear President Trump. But President Trump has been fighting back against the media and the lies, and he has decided to sue some of these mainstream liberal media outlets over their lies, okay, their propaganda, because they're not doing journalism, they're doing propaganda. Like, for example, ABC News, okay? President Trump sued ABC News because one of their chief propagandist anchors, George Slopopotamus, decided to defame the president multiple times during an interview with Nancy Mace, in which he claimed that President Trump was found civilly liable for rape, even though that's not true at all, okay? But he kept repeating that over and over and over again because he was pushing propaganda on behalf of the Democrat Party, right? Trying to help out the Democrats in the election, okay? So he defamed the former president on television multiple times. President Trump sued, and ABC decided to settle, right? And the mainstream liberal media, they lost their minds over ABC settling the lawsuit with President Trump. So now President Trump is also suing CBS, as we all know, over the fact that they distorted an interview that they did with Kamala Harris to make her sound coherent, right? To make her sound better than she actually did during the interview. Everybody knows that's what they did. And now you have CBS in a full-blown collapse, right? Over the fact that President Trump is suing them, and the executives at Paramount, the parent company of CBS, they want to settle, right? They want to settle, and they don't want to go to court, right? And the mainstream media, they're losing their minds over this because they see this as the liberal media capitulating to Trump, right? They see this as journalism capitulating to Trump, even though they're not doing journalism. They're doing propaganda, okay? You had the chief producer of 60 Minutes, he resigned not too long ago, and now we have more bombshell news about CBS falling apart because the president of CBS, Wendy McMahon, has now resigned as well too, right? She is stepping down over the fact that CBS, the parent company of CBS, is settling this lawsuit that President Trump brought against them for distorting the Kamala Harris interview, okay? And I want to talk about it, but before we get into it, we have to have a word from the sponsor of this video, Morgan & Morgan. Life can change in an instant. One moment you're fine, the next, well, everything is different. You're left with questions, with pain, with the feeling that you've been wrong. And the system, well, it feels like it is built against you. This is why you need somebody that's on your side, somebody that understands, somebody that will fight for you. At Morgan & Morgan, they're not just lawyers, they're advocates. They're here to give you a voice when yours feels lost. They've recovered billions for people just like you. Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm, takes on all types of injury cases from car accidents to medical malpractice. They fight for your rights and the compensation that you deserve if you become their client so that you can focus on healing. They've achieved significant verdicts over the past few months for the victims involved in life-altering car crashes, like out in Florida, a $12 million verdict, which was over 34 times the highest insurance offer. And they work on a contingency fee basis, which means that you don't pay unless you win. It's really that simple, to be honest with you. So you can start your claim now with Morgan & Morgan at forthepeople.com/blackconservative, which will be in the description below, right? The link will be in the description below, or you can scan the QR code on the screen with your phone's camera.
The head of CBS News, Wendy McMahon, announced this morning that she would leave the network. In a statement, McMahon said, quote, "It's become clear that the company and I do not agree on the path forward. It's time for me to move on and for this organization to move forward with new leadership." Now, this move comes one day after the season finale of 60 Minutes, the network's marquee program. It's at the center of a $20 billion lawsuit filed by President Trump over an interview with Kamala Harris last fall. CBS's parent company, Paramount, has been in talks to settle the suit ahead of a potential acquisition. You got a little sneak preview there. Let's put him back on the screen. Brian Stelter is here with me. Brian, I know you've been doing reporting first and foremost on Wendy McMahon's departure, which is the news today, but what it means, as I mentioned, for the larger question of the real fight that CBS and the people there are having with the Trump administration, which has consequential ramifications for everybody in the news.
Yeah, CBS is like Harvard. It's like these big law firms. It's like other institutions that are under tremendous pressure from Trump and his administration. Will CBS fight or will CBS fold? Well, the answer has actually been both. We've seen journalists at CBS doing the work every day, every week, put it on the news. We've seen the parent company executives try to fold, try to settle with Trump. We know settlement talks are underway. And this news today about McMahon suddenly resigning suggests that maybe a settlement is imminent. As one CBS correspondent said to me earlier today, it feels like a purge is underway. That's because last month, 60 Minutes boss Bill Owens stepped down, citing a loss of independence. And now today, McMahon also stepping down. Now, there could be perfectly innocent reasons for this, unrelated to political pressure, but the pressure is the big story inside CBS right now. Wendy McMahon had said to colleagues for a number of months that she would not apologize as a part of any settlement. You'll recall that ABC did apologize to Trump when they settled a lawsuit Trump had filed back in December. McMahon and Owens said they would not apologize. McMahon said, "That's a red line I will not cross." That's what she told people internally. Today, she's stepping down, which maybe indicates that a settlement is imminent. Of course, CBS's parent company, Paramount Global, they're trying to get a merger approved by the Trump administration. So this has all the appearances of a payoff by the parent company to get Trump administration approval.
Yeah, so I want you guys to understand, that's the liberal media spin, right? Because they're claiming journalism is under attack. No, journalism is not under attack. Propaganda is under attack, right? Letting these people openly lie on their airways, okay, about the president. Yeah, that is under attack, okay? But when you talk about actual journalism, is not very existent on these mainstream liberal media outlets. And again, this is why they're being sued, okay? Because they're not engaging in journalism anymore. Again, they're engaging in propaganda. And because of that, you have these individuals, these so-called journalists, the propagandists, they're mad and they're upset, right? They're trying to encourage these outlets not to fold to Trump, right? But these outlets are folding to Trump. In my opinion, I think they're folding because they know that during discovery, it is likely to be found that these mainstream liberal media outlets are in fact engaging in anti-Trump propaganda. They're purposely distorting their news coverage in order to smear President Trump, okay? But these so-called journalists claim, no, that's not what's happening. What's actually happening is that the parent company of CBS, again, according to mainstream liberal media, well, they want a merger to go through, right? They want the Trump administration to approve a merger, and that's why they're doing this. Even though they fail to mention that Sherry Redstone, the executive that they're criticizing for folding to Trump, was already trying to change CBS before President Trump was elected.
CBS News President Wendy McMahon is facing significant challenges in her first year on the job, dealing with multiple crises in the newsroom. Recent key issues include backlash over the editing of a 60 Minutes interview with Vice President Kamala Harris and controversies surrounding anchor Tony DeCopel's tough questioning of author Ta-Nehisi Coates about Israel. McMahon's command also recently overshadowed by her higher-ups stepping in to sound off. Sherry Redstone, a media executive for Paramount Global, CBS's parent company, has taken an active role in editorial discussions, emphasizing the need for balanced coverage of Middle East issues. In response to internal and external concerns, CBS News is considering an editorial review aimed at improving fairness in reporting. This effort includes investigating employee reports of anti-Semitism, anti-Muslim views, racism, and sexism in the newsroom. McMahon's leadership comes at a pivotal time as Paramount merges with Skydance Media, and she is set to meet with Jeff Shell, the incoming president of Paramount Global. McMahon, an outsider to network news with a background in local television, took over as CBS News president in August 2023. She's implementing changes within the news division, including a leadership reshuffle and an emphasis on long-form journalism. Former CNN anchor Don Lemon is chiming in over the ethics concerns surrounding CBS and is criticizing how the network handled the Ta-Nehisi Coates book interview.
I believe in messy conversations, even if it sort of veers off, as long as people are respectful. Why are the inmates running the asylum? Why are you responding? Of course, you should respond to people and say, we hear you. We want you to voice your opinion. We are standing by our journalist. Even if you have issues with him, then you do those issues with him, not in public.
Yeah, so you see, now you heard that, okay? This was happening before the election, okay? Before President Trump got in office, Sherry Redstone, one of the executives at Paramount, she was already basically pushing CBS to have more fair and balanced coverage, which in and of itself is an admission that CBS News is basically a left-wing news outlet, right? She's like, hey, you guys need to be more fair and balanced, right? That is an admission in and of itself. This was before Trump got in office, okay? Before he got in office. So to say that, well, this is all about the merger, I think is dishonest. Again, this is what we're talking about when it comes to media coverage, okay? They don't want to tell the truth and to say that, hey, maybe, just maybe, this woman legitimately feels like CBS News is not doing journalism, they're doing propaganda, and they need to change, right? No, that can't be it, right? It has to be that she's folding to Trump to make some money, right? That is the narrative here from the media. This is an attack on journalism. Except, again, these changes were happening before the election, okay? Before President Trump won, okay? So you have this CEO of CBS, Wendy McMahon. She is resigning because she doesn't want to bend the knee, right? She doesn't want to apologize and admit that CBS, in fact, made a mistake, right? She doesn't want to apologize to the president, so she's like, I'm out, right? Along with the producer of 60 Minutes. Again, this is CBS News in full-blown collapse. I gotta tell you, this is one of the most entertaining things, okay, to watch the mainstream liberal media collapse before our very eyes. I mean, it really is something.
That's a payoff is a big term, and I know that you don't use it lightly, Brian, and we're waiting to see what exactly happens. It does feel like we're on the cusp of something. And I mentioned coming into that this isn't just about CBS News. This is about the journalism writ large right now in this time. Talk about that.
Yes, pressure under billionaire owners like Sherry Redstone, who controls Paramount, pressure on other media companies as well. I mentioned that framing of fighting versus folding. I said we're seeing it happen in real time at CBS. We're seeing it at other places as well. And I think it's notable that when some outlets fold, when some institutions fold, others stand up stronger and start to fight. In fact, we've seen startup news outlets start to be born out of this tumultuous time in the industry. So it'll be very interesting to see what CBS ultimately does in this case. Sherry Redstone might decide she has a lot of money at stake with this deal. She has a lot of money to gain by getting her merger approved. She also has a lot of money she might lose if it's not approved. She might find it from a corporate point of view to be the right thing to do to settle with Trump, to make this lawsuit go away. But I remember we interviewed experts back on the day Trump sued CBS last October. They called the lawsuit frivolous. They called it ridiculous. They called it junk. And those assessments still stand to be true today, even if the settlement does happen at Paramount, Dana.
Yeah, and we do all now see the full transcript, which probably feeds into the statements that you were getting, calling it frivolous and junk. Thanks so much, Brian.
Yeah. Again, CNN, they just never learn. They never learn. Again, this is nothing but speculation here, right? She must be doing it to fold a Trump, right? She must be doing it so that she can get the merger approved. You know what would be hilarious? Is if the Trump administration denies this merger, right? If they come out here and they deny the merger, what is CNN going to say? Are they going to come out and backtrack and say, hey, we are taking back our claims that Sherry Redstone, that Paramount was making CBS fold to Trump to get a merger approved, right? We're going to take that back because the merger got denied. No, they're not going to take it back. They're going to continue with the narrative that, hey, well, this is an attack on journalism. No. This is fighting back against propaganda. This is fighting back against the lies, okay? And I got to tell you guys, the mainstream liberal media, they're in full-blown cope mode right now, okay? Because they see the writing on the wall in regards to how they are losing influence over the American people, okay? And this is why you have the propagandists now claiming that the alternative media, right, that alternative media sources outside of mainstream liberal media, they're now the establishment, right? That people like me and others, right, podcasts, okay, YouTubers, we're the establishment now, okay? And I guess that the legacy media, the mainstream liberal media, they are, I guess, the outsiders, right? This is kind of the framing from this CNN interviewer in this interview with comedian Tim Dillon.
Do you feel like you're part of a new establishment that's being created?
I don't think I'm part of a new establishment. I think it would be pretty difficult to look at these podcasts. I know it's a popular thing right now, especially in certain media circles, to say that after running an incredibly unpopular candidate who was introduced very late in the race because an elderly man who could not be the president, who everyone told was functioning as the president for 4 years, decided to, this wind is wild, huh?
Yeah.
See? But this was a very specific circumstance in which Kamala Harris ran for the presidency.
Yeah.
She was somewhat unpopular, and she was not a star in Democratic politics before this at all. And her communication strategy was pretty weak. I think most people have admitted that. So to hang this defeat all on a few podcasts and to say that they were the problem, I just don't buy the narrative. So I don't think I'm a new establishment. If you weigh, again, a few comedians with podcasts versus all of the people that supported Kamala Harris, Democrat donors, billionaires, big people, if the idea is that me and a few comedians have more power than multi-billionaires, huge media institutions, a whole political party apparatus, I just don't think most people are going to buy that. I think it seems like a great way to excuse running an unpopular candidate on a platform that American people weren't sold on.
I think even beyond politics, though, even beyond the question of the election, again, I know the liberal Joe Rogan conversation is so dominant, and I think not nuanced enough, but there is power in a massive audience.
There's absolutely power in a massive audience, but if you're saying that power is equal to the CIA or all of these other people that have been very critical of President Trump, right?
Yeah.
So the idea that the power that Theo Von has would be equal to the intelligence agencies or these massive legacy media institutions seems crazy.
But you got way more audience than when you're saying we don't have power.
Yeah, well, I mean, everybody has a way more audience than CNN, right? That's not really saying much, okay? Everybody has more viewership than CNN, okay? That's not saying much. The whole point that is being made here is that it is very silly to come out here and to say that so-called alternative media is the new establishment because, you know, viewership is rising for alternative media. When, again, that doesn't replace the fact that MSNBC, CBS, ABC, NBC, again, a vast majority of the establishment media, including CNN, they're overwhelmingly left-wing and backed by big billionaire money. Now, again, why are they losing their influence? Well, it's because of the lies, right? The lies and propaganda is why they're losing viewership and why they're losing influence. But that doesn't mean they're not establishment anymore, right? No, you're still establishment. It's just that nobody really believes the establishment, okay? You got to understand that there's a difference. Having more viewership than CNN, again, doesn't make you establishment. What makes you establishment is the fact that you're backed by multi-billion-dollar conglomerates pushing a message on behalf of a political establishment, right? And again, basically a power structure. That's essentially what the legacy news is, right? Which is why they are establishment, okay? In alternative media is different because everybody has their own opinions, right? I mean, there's also left-wing alternative media, right? There's right-wing alternative media. There's, I guess, centrist alternative media. But they're not all pushing the same message on behalf of, again, a power structure, right? It's not the same thing. It's not as centralized. It's more decentralized. And again, that is the difference that this CNN interviewer clearly doesn't understand, right? But what you can see here is that the media, the legacy media, they're essentially now trying to push off this term establishment onto alternative media outlets, right? Because they know that there's a negative stigma associated with being deemed establishment.
Or we're not the CIA. Well, you know, there's some gradations between that. And also, I'm sure there's like...
Well, just you use the word establishment.
Yeah.
I didn't say that we didn't have any power or that audiences weren't powerful. But when you use the term establishment, I think that that's more than just having an audience. That's having an institutional component that I don't think we have. But I think legacy media does. I think the government and the intelligence communities do. I think Hollywood certainly does. And I think all of those people, all of those power factions have worked together for a very, very, very long time. So to say that a few comedians with podcasts equal that seems crazy.
I see why you
okay.
Yeah, I mean, it is crazy. It is crazy. But it comes from a place of jealousy and hate, right? That's where it comes from. So, you know, these people, they can see the writing on the wall, right? They know that they're losing viewership. They're losing relevance. They can't drive the narrative the way that they used to. So now they're trying to smear alternative media because of their own failure, right? But what you see here from CBS is the fact that you have people working at the outlet that are so Trump deranged that they just can't accept the fact that the executives want to settle and move on, right? They want to settle and they want to move on to something else. No, they can't accept that because they see that as bending the knee to Trump, which shows you how Trump deranged these people are, right? These people at these networks is weeding them out, right? All of the most Trump deranged individuals are leaving and then they turn around and claiming that we're not biased, right? We have no bias. And it's like, well, your derangement, the fact that you're quitting, right? You're resigning in protest, to me shows your bias, right? It shows you how much they hate Trump and they just can't stand the idea of Trump winning over the mainstream liberal media, right? Over CBS settling a lawsuit with President Trump over the fact that they deceptively edited a video in order to push propaganda on behalf of Kamala Harris, right? Which is what they did, right? That is what President Trump is alleging. And, you know, CBS doesn't want it to go to court for whatever reason, right? Even though they swore up and down that this is frivolous and that we can win it and that, you know, it is unjust. Well, if you really believe that, then you should just take it to court, right? And fight it out in court. But they're not doing that, right? They're not doing that. And some people can't take it, right? They can't stand it. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.